Welcome to another episode of Black Belts and Boardrooms. My name is Amir Khawaja. I'm one of your co hosts here with Renard Henry. And it is another beautiful day, at least here in Central Texas. And Renard, please tell us who is our guest today?
Oh man, I am super excited about this one. I told everybody, I told my wife, I told some of my friends who was gonna be on the podcast because I got so excited about it. Today we have Mr. Jim Rose, VP of Operations for Pilot Company. Jim, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Oh, man, we are so excited to have you on here. And we always start off, we always got to hear that origin story from somebody. So especially you, Jim, tell us your origin story.
Origin from the very beginning.
Very beginning.
All right. Well, first of all, man, I'm already nervous because you built me up too much. You told your wife I was going to be on the show, so I hope not to disappoint you. But origin story, man. I started. I was born in a small town outside of Buffalo, New York, called the town of Tonawanda. I was born to a single parent household, just my mother. And I was born into an interracial relationship. So my parents weren't married. I lived in a very poor white neighborhood for the first 10 to 12 years of life. And so, those years were very informative. I'm sure we can get into some of those reasons throughout the podcast today. It's interesting. I was goofing around on Zillow a couple of months ago, and I found the house that we rented. I'll loosely call it a house of the establishment that we rented. And I found it on Zillow, and it is about 500 square feet, one room, one bathroom, stone floors, one space heater. That was it at the time. I don't know what it looks like inside anymore, but you could buy that home today for like $35,000. So there you go. But those were the beginnings, and it was it was an amazing, informative time of life. So I say that's where I started. Um, Later on in life, I ended up moving in with my grandmother, and moved to a different suburb outside of Buffalo, and finished high school there with her. And then I started school at Buffalo State College, now called Buffalo State University. I majored in secondary education in Spanish. I am not a Spanish teacher today. Um, I actually transitioned to retail when I was about 20 years old. I started with Target Corporation as an hourly team member in the loss prevention pyramid. And I moved through the ranks there. I was a store security manager. I moved to a multi-unit role, a district manager role, through a couple of different states. I then transitioned to human resources, and I spent about 7 years in human resources, one as an HR business partner, then as an HR director. I was recruited from a ex-colleague from Target to a company called Belk Department Stores. If you're not in the Southeast, you might not know what Belk is, but it's a small family-owned department store now owned by private equity, mostly in the Southeast. I was with Belk for about 7 years as a regional vice president, and I was then recruited to Pilot, and I've been here for 8 years. And here at Pilot, I'm head of stores, so I operate the 700 or so locations across the U.S. and Canada, and it's just been a blast. So that's a little bit dabble of the personal beginnings, and then some into the professional life. I've been married since 2002, and my wife's name is Dawn. We have two beautiful girls. One is 18. Her name is Erilyn. She just started at Grand Canyon University this year, but she's still home, which is good. That's local here in Phoenix, where I live. And my youngest daughter's name is Kamira. She is 16, and she's a junior. And yeah, they're all the love of my life. It's a blessing. So that's it. That's the crash course. Yeah.
Man, I can hear it in your voice about how much you love your family, and it sounds like they're the backbone to what you do every day, which I can hear it in your voice. I wanted
Yeah.
to go back to that early part of your professional life. Working at
Yeah.
Target, you went to school for something totally different. What made you get into that retail side, and how did you make that decision, like, "This is what I'm gonna focus on going forward"?
Yeah, I had two ideas of what I wanted to do when I grew up. One was to be a teacher, and there was a couple of teachers in my life that were very inspirational that I wanted to be like, and so that was partly the reason. But there was another person that I wanted to be like, and that was my uncle. My uncle is a police officer. He's retired today, but that was the other path. So I wasn't sure which I wanted to do. So I was going to school to be a teacher, and I worked at Target in the security field to just see what that felt like to dabble there. And as I at the time, this was in 1997, Target was really booming, opening new store after new store, expanding throughout the country, and there were just amazing opportunities. And what I saw was a lot of leaders having the opportunity to promote, to move on to bigger and better things, and it was very exciting. And that's it changed my desire. I had some very early mentors within the company, um, that I watched grow and thought, I want to do that. That's pretty amazing. And so, yeah, that was the reason for the change, and never looked back.
That's a little similar to my story. I saw great people doing the great work. It made me want to switch and go into leadership. So, I always tell this story that when I started, I was an IC. I didn't think
Mm,
about becoming a leader or becoming a manager. I just needed a job in order to pay bills. That was my first thought. And you said that you had mentors that made you want to switch into leadership. What did you see from those mentors that say, "Hey, I want to do what they're doing"?
yeah, it's amazing. So the very first, I would say, inspiration at Pilot was a boss of mine, and his name was John. And I just watched his ability to inspire others, and I watched his skill of being able to influence not only his peers but his boss at the time, the store manager, um, and really drive key initiatives. And the way that he did it, um, by being a student of the business, by being very persuasive, those are some of the skills that I thought, oh, this is a pretty amazing leader. And he ended up getting promoted to a multi-unit position. And I sat down with him one day and I said, I never considered the idea of having these amazing opportunities outside of what I thought I wanted to do. Tell me about it. So he did. He walked me through what it would take. He walked me through some of the financial rewards that were possible in the future. And so I started to see a future in retail in a different way than I ever imagined. And so I just said, what do I need to do? How do I get on a similar path? And that was that was how I started. That was my early inspiration. So, John Seisman, if you're out there listening, I'm talking about you.
That's amazing. So,
Yeah.
Jim, I'm curious because so I'm in an operational role myself, more in
Yeah.
technology than in the field you're in. One of the challenges that I've always found is you get such a diverse group of people in the operational area. How do you think about the kind of people you want to hire, and what does that look like from your lens?
Yeah. It's great. I'm sure your industry isn't all that different, but I would say specifically in our travel center business, we have such a diverse, and it's the same as retail, but we have such a diverse level of employee from, entry level employee to management, to middle management to executive. And what we really look for is that's the question. What we look for
Yes.
in employees, you know, it differs by level, of course, but the similarities are this is we want people that are engaging, right? We want people that work really hard. We want people that care about others. In this industry, if you don't have a genuine care about the guest or the customer, whatever the company refers to their customer as, um, you'll never build affinity within the team. You'll never get the team to believe in whatever mission it is that you're trying to accomplish. That could be anything. That could be to sell something. That could be to give great service. And so you've got to find team members that really care, and then you have to help them care. Right? You have to be able to communicate to diverse groups of team members at different levels in a way that they understand, and in a way that helps them feel like, hey, what I do in this role is important. And it may be different than what you do in your role or above, but it's really up to the leader. So part of it is how do we attract folks, but it really is that leader, is how do we engage our team to care about what we want to do. I've always felt, all of us have gone through the ranks, right? Today would be no different than 30 years ago. You probably go home and still tell your family about what you did. And what you did that day was the most important, hopefully, was the most important thing in your world in that job, right? And so whether you're the entry level team member that works as a deli production team member, man, you have a really important job. Or if you're the CEO of the company, you're still going home and telling your family what you did, and you want to be proud of what you've done. And it's leaders that get people to see how important their roles are the ones that get the most out of their teams.
That's amazing. I'm hearing an undertone of a theme, which is mindset over skill set.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
fair for me to articulate it that way?
I think it is fair. Yeah, I really do. Yeah, I think it is fair.
So how do you help the mindset of your team members at all these levels? Because I know for myself it's pretty challenging. I have to think about all those levels like you just indicated. But how do you look at it? Is there something else? Because I'm always curious to see what other leaders are thinking about in that vein.
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, I think about our role as operators, and specifically in roles that we visit locations and, check on performance, motivate folks to do things that we expect or want. I do think that it does take an art to influence people. And I think that kind of goes into the mindset over skill set at times. And what I found is the best way to influence people is to, you can visit a location and tell people what to do, right? Like, but there's a difference between influencing somebody and making them do something, right? I could walk into a store and make people do something for the time that I'm there and leave, and maybe they will continue, maybe not. Or we can teach our leaders to influence. And I think there's a couple keys to that. Part of what I believe is that most team members really do want to do a good job. And I know that sounds very cliche, but I really do believe that. I also think that when you visit an operation that something isn't working, right? There's a metric we're not making. Most of the time, the team believes what they're doing is right, and there's some reason it isn't, right? So I think that's the mindset that a skilled influencer can change. And you can change that by listening, asking questions. I've always felt like if you can actually show somebody the reason that they're thinking is maybe not totally correct, and in a compassionate way, show them the right way, that then they can go, okay, my previous thinking was leading me to these actions, but now I'm thinking about it differently because you took the time to show me, and now I can believe, if that makes sense. And that's so I think it is really about, like, we've got to go explain the whys. We've got to get into the details with folks and say, hey, I there's been times where I've said to people, hey, if I believed what you are saying or believing, I'd be taking the same actions. I wouldn't be trying to fix this either because it's out of my control. Give us some time today and let's walk through the reasons that that may be a little bit flawed. And I think that we'll agree that there's a better way to do this. And so I think that's the mindset that needs to change. I heard this. I'm reading this book right now, and I actually just shared this story earlier today. But I'm reading this book right now, and there's a chapter on this exact topic and the way that people think. And the idea is that in most cases, it's not the person's logic that is incorrect, that's leading to the result that's undesirable. It's the thinking that goes into the logic. And the analogy that the author uses is amazing. The analogy says, all right, if I were to tell you that every male is a four-legged reptile, I know that's crazy. If I were to tell you that, and then I said, Renard is a male, what would the logic tell you? The logic would say Renard is a four-legged reptile. So in that case, the logic is solid. There's nothing wrong with it. But the premise going into that logic is flawed. So my point is, when you're influencing somebody that really believes what they're doing is right, but it isn't, that's the job, is to say, the way you're thinking about how this should work or what you should be doing is different. Once you get them there, people are smart. The logic brings them to the result that we desire. So anyway, I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but that's how I think about influence.
No, that's wonderful. So you touched on another theme that I really, like thinking about from time to time, which is how do I transition as a leader from role power to influence power? And I really
Yeah.
like the way you explained that. So thank you.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say on that is I've, over the past couple of years, I've really started to believe that there isn't, because I hear influence without authority. How do I influence without authority? And I feel that I think that's overblown. I think you are either influential and you possess that ability or not. You could be a leader and not have the ability to influence, or you could be not a leader and influence at a very high level. I just think there's specific skills that takes, and it's one of those skills is not a title.
Yeah. Yeah. So very true.
Yeah.
So very true.
No, I agree with that. You don't have to have the title in order to be a leader. I tell people that all the time. Don't think you have to have this VP, senior VP, an executive title in order to be a leader. You can be a leader at an IC level. You don't have to be that executive level in order to lead people. And I do agree. Some of it's natural. Some of it's taught in a way you learn from others how to lead after a while. So I
Hmm.
do think I think part of that leadership is in the word I always use is inspiring other people. If
Exactly.
you can lead and inspire them to wanna do more, break out of that comfort zone, it works out so much better. You start having people that thought they couldn't do more, all of a
Hmm.
sudden new level. So I wanna talk about, where you are now. You're the VP at Pilot Company. Can you give us a day in the life of what you have to do on a regular basis as the VP?
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, I'll really break it up into two areas. Most of my time, I'm out visiting stores. Most of my time, I'm visiting with my team. So I have an amazing group of division leaders and region managers that I'm out in the field with 3 out of 4 weeks. And when we're together, we're visiting store locations, and we're digging into performance. And there's really three key things that we care most about. And we break it up into three areas. It's guest, it's team, and financial. Probably exactly what it sounds like to you is, we have specific um, expectations and measurements on guest satisfaction. But along with that, we coach behaviors, how to engage with the guests, how to sell, those types of things. Um, from a team aspect is, we want to make sure that the stores are staffed. We've got processes on how to hire people, make sure that we have an engaging environment for the team. Um, they're well trained to do what we ask them to do every day, and those types of things. We dig into operational processes, as you can imagine. So we operate travel centers. So in a travel center, you have a retail floor, you have gas that fuel, we have diesel gas that fuel, which is most of our revenue. We have full service delis that we totally own and operate. And then we have about 500 quick serve restaurants that we are the full operator and franchisee. And those restaurants for us are Subway, Taco Bell, Arby's, and Wendy's. And so we operate those. So that's what we're doing. We're digging in, making sure that we're following brand standards across the board, those types of things. And so our entire job, and this goes back to how do we influence folks to care and want to take great care of the guests, and how do we continue to drive their affinity for pilots so that they want to come in every day and do great work. And so that's in a nutshell what I do out in the field. The rest of the time is analyzing the business, um, you know, help drive strategy. What do we want to be doing in the next year, 2, 3, 4 years, those types of things. Partnering with, so in my role, I partner with all of the other functions within the company. And that's, we have a food function, we have HR, we have consumer insights, we have marketing, we have facilities. And so everything that comes together in the stores is a collaborative effort of all these groups working together to be the best we can for our guests.
Yeah, and understanding it, and this brings me to a point. You have to travel a lot. Do you feel being seen, being at these other locations? Do you feel that helps help you understand the business more? Being at these locations, being seen, and the employees seeing you around these other locations. Do you feel like that's helping everything?
Yeah, it's critical to my role, in my opinion. We my biggest fear when I came into this role was being disconnected from reality of what's happening out there and making bad decisions, right? Because the further away you get from the work, the more disconnected you get. And so I'll never forget my very first big meeting with the team. I looked out to the group and I said, I just have one favor to ask you, is don't let me mess this up. And what I mean by that is, like, I want to know, I want to know reality. I want to know what's really happening. We're going to roll things out over, like we always do, over time. But I want us to have open communication about what's working, what's not, what's real, what isn't. And so, to your point, being in the stores to really feel and see and touch and understand how any processes that we're rolling out, it could be as simple as how we clean a shower, how we clean a restroom, how we make a sandwich, whatever it is. If we as leaders aren't connected to those details and understand what it takes to do the work, we will make bad decisions. It's a constant connection to what's happening out there.
That goes to this phrase I use, and I always say, the more you know about the business, the better off you'll be. So that goes in, like you say, how the sandwiches are made, how we working on, that morning shift, that mid shift, that evening shift. The more you know, the better chance you make the best decision possible for the business. I love that.
Yeah, we really do want our teams to understand and feel that we exist for them, that we exist to help make their job easier. And you can do that by listening, making changes where necessary. But that is really important to us. We want the teams to know that they matter, and their opinions are.
That's amazing. I think we're all operationally active leaders here on this on this episode. So, Jim, one of the things I find, at least in my practice, is I leading a technology operations. For me, it's always let me make sure that there's psychological safety. And as you visit each one of these stores, how do you maintain that psychological safety? Because the moment you show up, that role power is leading in front of you, and then how do you take that away and make sure everybody feels that
It's
it's a safe
all right.
space?
I can relate to that. I've always not forgotten or have not forgotten what it feels like to be visited. I remember it. I remember the work that went into it that shouldn't have had to gone into it. I remember the waking up in the morning being worried about, is it going to go okay? I remember all that. I remember the maybe I couldn't eat as much that morning because right, you just get that feeling. And so I've tried to not be naive to me, it's just me. I'm just showing up and we're working together. Right. That's how I think about it. I'm not worried about the same thing as the folks being visited are as I get ready up. But it's easy to forget that it doesn't always feel like that on the other end. And so your question about psychological safety is a good one. And it's something we actually talk about at Pilot a lot. There are really a couple ways, in my opinion, at least that I try to have an environment of psychological safety. Number one, you say it, right? Is hey, we're truly here to help. Okay. No, everything's not going to be perfect, but I want to know what is really happening. So that's one piece of the conversation. But you also have to practice what you preach, right? And so if something is shared with you or something is uncovered that is not desirable, and you react like a jerk, then there goes your credibility on, you know, people feeling comfortable sharing the real with you, right? And so I think that's two. The second is like I mentioned this earlier, but really getting into the details with folks helps with your credibility. And when you're getting into the down and dirty, and listen, when we're visiting, sometimes we'll get on our hands and knees and scrub a toilet if we need to. Um, and I understand that on the other end is like, oh my gosh, the VP scrubbing the toilet. It may not feel amazing, but none of us are above that. And so I think the team seeing leaders be grounded and into the details does give credibility. And so I think those are it. It's really just how you react. Um, that will tell you can say that there's safety, um, and not do it. And I said the last thing is this: it's I try. I remember, I told you I remember what it's like to be visited. Try to do things to lighten it up. And one of the things that I do is I in the last 3 years have not worn a name tag that said my name. It's always a fictional character or, you know, something like that, right? Or a movie character or um, a historical figure. And part of it is, first of all, it's funny. That's why I do it. It's funny. But in reality, anything that can get people to say, Franz Ferdinand, what is that? Right? You start getting into conversations, right? And yeah, it's so you just want to show people that you're human too. Really funny. And by the way, I don't do this on purpose. I always say if people know who I am when I come in, but not everybody. I was in a store about 2 months ago, and I ended up talking to a maintenance team member. And I was wearing the name tag. I don't remember what the name was, whatever, Donald Duck, I don't know, but it didn't say Jim. So I ended up talking to this team member for about 15 minutes, and he was walking me through. We had just rolled out a new shower cleaning process. I asked him how it was going, and he was super honest, and he didn't like it, and he thought it sucked, and he told me that he thought it sucked. And I said, man, I really appreciate that. Here's what was funny. Now, of course, I introduced myself as Jim. He knew there was this big visit coming, right? Um, and at the end of the conversation, he said, hey, is that Jim going to come back here? And I said, first of all, I did tell him my name was Jim in the beginning. And you've been talking to me. I'm Jim. You've been talking to me for the past 15 minutes. But that's an example of like, I would never purposely pretend I was Donald Duck. That wasn't the point, right? My point was like, there was that just further displayed to me this need for psychological safety because what I heard was so raw and so real that if you don't create that environment, oh no, everything's fine. We love it. And they don't love it and they're not going to actually use it. Right. Yeah. I think there's a lot of ways. You just got to be a real person. I also try to relate to team members. I told you about my background in the beginning. I see me in a lot of people. I see my mother in a lot of our team members. And so I just think having that in the back of my mind, sometimes I'll share that, right, with people. Um, I didn't just wake up in this job, right? And none of us did. And so I just think there's a lot of ways you can connect with humans at a different level, and hopefully they feel safe sharing things with you.
Well, I can tell you're a very well-grounded leader, Jim. I think it shows in your voice, it shows in how you have given these examples. Have you found a name that you like the most, which, is the funniest?
There's a couple, man. I think is my all time favorite. It was so much a favorite that I lost it and I ordered another one the next day. And it's Howie, Howie, last name Dewitt. How we do it. So when I went, yes, yes. So I always tell the people I'm visiting when they ask who this is, go, this is how we do it. So, right. So and I've got others too, but sometimes it's seasonal. It's Christmas time. That's what it. That's what it is. We just want to go in and have fun, and we got very hard jobs. We're open 24 hours. It's dirty. It's stressful. We deal with the general public, and sometimes people aren't always super nice. So it's tough sometimes, and so we don't want to add to that. We want to show people that we understand. We're here to help make their jobs as desirable as possible and help them be successful. So yeah. But anyway, how we do it. That's my favorite one.
I love that name. It's very clever. Now I have to ask you, 24/7 operations, probably 3 shifts. What does fun look like when you have these team gatherings?
To get a store, what they do a lot of things. Our stores are fun. So they'll do, you know, crazy dress up day. They'll do things like today's Friday, so in some of the stores out there, it'll be wear your favorite football team. We drive some of those at the corporate level, and say, all right, this is what we're going to do for this week. We have team member appreciation week, and I say a week, and I'll tell you why it's more than a week. But we do a team member appreciation week twice a year, and there's structured things throughout the week where it'll be pizza day or something like that, or you name it. So there's activities through the week, but those are always a reminder of how we should be treating our team always. Right? It isn't a we're going to be nice to a group for a week, um, and then we're not going to be, and then the fall we're going to do it again. I do think that there's sometimes it's important for us to just intensify a focus so that we can ground ourselves in how important people are. And so we do that. We also do driver appreciation month, where we have a series of activities for drivers. This year we had our team members write personal thank you cards uh, to drivers as they exited, and got really great feedback on that. But just any way we can make connections and show people how much they mean to us. Again, we are in an industry that's so critical, and our professional drivers are such the lifeblood of everything you're wearing. The microphone, everything came on a truck at some point in time, and you know you'll order something on Amazon, and all you know is that it shows up at your door, maybe the next day or a couple hours later. But there's a high likelihood that somebody slept in their truck in order for that to get to you. And so us, our team members, showing our drivers that we understand that, how much we appreciate how hard their job is so important. So
And I will have to say, I say this all the time. Truck drivers, just in general, are the backbone of America for the most part. Stuff they're running. I know I got a couple of friends who are truck drivers, and get to hear stories of what they have to do on a regular basis. So I agree with that so much. I want to dive into an important topic, and it's around legacy.
Hmm.
What do you feel like your legacy is, and what do you want to when you decide to retire or move on? What do you want that legacy to be for your career?
I hope I haven't earned this yet, and so, but I do hope that someday when I don't work or I move on, that I am remembered as somebody that really genuinely, truly did care for people. And I know that's you ask 10 people, 9 would say that, right? But I do genuinely mean no matter in what capacity we worked, whether they worked for the company and it didn't work out for them or not, like that they always felt that I had their best interests at heart, always took good care of them, always was genuine and honest. That would be very fulfilling. And so, there's people that I think about that I have looked up to influence me in that way. And I told myself, gosh, I hope what I hear about them and what I think about them, it'd be an honor to be in that same type of conversation. And that's all. That's really that's what I hope. So
That's a good legacy to leave. To be honest, that you inspired others, that others said, "Man, I want to do what Jim does." You
yeah,
know
yeah,
that's how I got inspired over time. I saw great leaders, and I was like, I want to do what he does. I want to do what he does, and that I think that's like out of all three of us, I think that's what we want to leave at the end of the day. Not
yeah.
about how much money you saved the company or how many stores. It's the legacy of how you inspired other people and how people thought about you. And that segues me into the mentor mentee part of being a leader. I'm
Hmm.
sure you've had mentors, but now I'm sure that you're mentoring other people. What are you looking for in a mentee when you're trying to say, "Hey, I want you to be the next person up"?
Yeah, that's really great question. So there's two, maybe two types of mentees. Is just folks that you're helping along the way to just grow in their role or grow to another role, and it may not be specifically as your successor. And it sounds like you're maybe asking about like somebody that would be ready to be a successor.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
both sides, both sides.
I'd like to. Yeah, yeah. So I think you know, the successor piece is really specific by role. I think. Here's what I look for just in general. In when you are in a specific role, there are going to be competencies that align with that role, right? And it may be that you communicate at a certain level, that you make decisions at a certain level, that you think through things, you think through strategy in a different way, and it's needed in that role that you're in. So in a case like that, you're really trying to find people, number one, and give to them pieces of that role, so that really for two reasons. So that one, they can practice it, and then two, that you can assess it. Does that make sense? So that's a very um those are very sort of hard skills, like that are connected to the job. And so what I have found is you'll see people starting to emerge and say, hey, starting to sound like that role when they talk, right? Starting to look like the work of this role based on what they're putting forward. And that's kind of that piece of it. And then the other part is, how do they align with the company's culture? And I've only worked for two other companies, but each company has a specific culture and a specific set of values that they expect leaders to live by. And I think that is, I'm saying is second, but probably just as, if not more important than the actual skills for the role, because those, at times, the skills can be learned. Sometimes they can't be, but at times. But it's the connection to the culture, how folks carry themselves, and because as a leader at every level, there's a company culture, and every company has a mission statement. And every company's mission statement will say something like, "We care about our guests or customers, whatever that means. We care about our team, and we care about profits." In some way, they're all written differently, but in some way, that's what it comes back to, right? Um, and that every role is the local expression of whatever that culture is. Does that make sense? And so, continuing to who are the people that are expressing that culture to their team are the ones that stand out to me, to say, all right, this is who's the extension of our CEO's voice, who's the extension of my, right? You start to go, okay, this person gets it and they care. And so I think that's really important.
Very good. Now I know we have Jim the professional, but we also have Jim the martial artist. I
Yeah.
like we talked about offline. Me and you trained so many years ago back in the day. We were both for blue belts in jujitsu, but you're not training jujitsu anymore. What are you doing now, as far as martial arts is
Yeah,
concerned?
man. I transitioned to Krav Maga many years ago. Um, and that's what I'm still doing today. So yeah, it's been a blast. Having the jujitsu, I had a wrestling and jujitsu background, is always helpful, always beneficial. And but I love Krav Maga. It's been an amazing transition. It's a significant passion of mine. Love it. Yeah, that's what I'm doing now.
Man, and Amir, I gotta tell you, I used to, and like I said, I used to train with Jim back in the day. Jim was tough. Even at the blue belt level, Jim was tough. I still remember the many rounds we used to have coming in early before class started, during class. Tough rounds. So I definitely know you switching to any martial arts, people are gonna have major problems with
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great. Krav Maga is different. Obviously, it's 100% focused on self defense. It's 100% focused on surviving violent attacks, and it's great for that. It's great for men, women, and children. I've had my daughters take some specific. They don't train with me, but we also do seminars. So they've done, women's self defense and rape prevention classes and those types of things. And so it's just all martial arts are good. They all are, and
Yeah.
and they all lead to the same path. And you can equip our communities, our women, our children, to be confident and to defend themselves. It's an amazing gift. So I'm so glad that I found it. It's done a lot for me, um, and I know you can both relate. It's done a lot for you as well in terms of the way you think about things, your discipline. It's awesome. So
One of the things I say to people about martial arts is that, you just pick any martial art, doesn't matter, just pick one. And what
yeah,
it will do for your self-esteem and confidence is incredible. My family and I, we all trained together, and that was a great experience. And to your point
yeah,
about your daughter, my I have a daughter too, and I'm concerned about all the same things that you are, more than
mhm,
likely.
for sure.
So from a martial arts perspective, one of the things that I find is each martial art is grounded in culture. And part of it is you look at Tai Chi, or you look at Filipino Kali or Eskrima. They're grounded in the physical form of the indigenous people, and that drives how you
Yeah.
combat in that system of martial arts. Is there anything about Krav Maga that you found the most attractive? Because some of us are built more athletically than others. And you said wrestling, so I'm imagining you're probably very strong and very athletic to begin with. What was your attraction to Krav Maga? Because that's something I find interesting about anybody who gravitates towards any martial art. Is there's a certain thing that pulls them in.
Yeah, that's great. What gravitated me to Krav Maga was the multi-use real life application, like multi-use real life application. You talked about sort of the beginnings and the culture of martial arts. And I think that Krav Maga is very special. So Krav Maga was developed um, partly because of the Holocaust. and it was developed by one gentleman, and then with the help of others, to for a group to make a promise to each other that never again, like never again will our people, our community be taken advantage of and not know what to do and not be heard. And so it just has such a meaningful beginning, and that's the essence of the system itself. And so I just think that as a starting point, gets your attention, right? And it's, of course, it's developed over the years. It's a principle based system, not so much a technique based system. There's always techniques, but it is a principle based system, so that it is should be learnable and applicable for everybody. So yeah, those are kind of that's the idea of it. But that really attracted me, and it's you know it's just a heck of a lot of fun too.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I'll share with you one quick story. I had a student, so I train in Taekwondo, and that's been the martial art of my choice for the last almost decade now. I had a student one time and said to me, "So when are we gonna learn the 1-inch punch?" Yeah, exactly, and I said, "Wrong martial arts, sir. That's
Yeah,
not what we're
yeah.
gonna learn."
It's so funny. Some martial arts are like their own worst enemy for that reason, right? It's like there's this folklore that sometimes it started within the community that's just that gives it a bad name, right? And that's a good example of that, right? So yeah,
Well, Krav Maga is got some pretty lethal moves. You know, I used to train in Muay Thai, and one of the sparring partners I had was also a Krav Maga practitioner. And I can tell, I mean, some of those moves can be it's all about taking out your opponent with the least amount of energy expelled.
yes,
Kembo is the same way as well. You know, it's a Hawaiian
yeah,
form of martial art and it's pure street
yeah,
fighting.
yes, yes,
I think martial arts in general, I tell anybody they should take it. I don't care how old you are, how young you are. Take a martial arts. It will help you with, if you're one of the introvert, it will automatically change you. If you have problems being uncomfortable, martial arts will
hmm
help with that.
hmm
You'll get a lot calmer in those critical situations. I think we all probably take something away from martial arts in order for our daily professional lives. But Jim, I gotta ask you, I ask everybody at the end of the show because we're getting close to time. What's your theme music? What is that music that gets you ready for the day when you got to go to a different pilot area? What's that theme music for you?
man, I am such a music fan that it's hard. I will answer, I promise. It's hard for me to narrow down. I have no musical boundaries. I listen to all of it. What's funny though is I've had the opportunity at some of our conferences to have like walkout music, and my very favorite that I've ever used was Public Enemy, "Can't Trust It." Starts with the "Here Come the Drums." That's the beginning of it, and it was the very first time I had an opportunity to have walkout music. And I remember thinking, man, I was in eighth grade working out in my basement, listening to this song. Like, what a thing! Like, who would have thought? So that was probably my favorites. But yeah, it's all of it. I listen to every genre. There's always music up going on, and so it's just love it. Yeah,
Yeah, I love that. I love that. You can't go wrong with Public Enemy. I always feel like music is basically you can write your story of your life based off music. So that's why
yeah.
it's one of the main reasons we ask all the time, like what sets that tone for you to get your day started. And Jim, we have to say we appreciate you coming on the podcast. This has been one of the best conversations we had. And we just want to say thank you for coming on. You're helping us finish off the year off right for our first season, and we're glad that we had you on.
Now I'm so grateful to be on. Thank you for that. And it's been amazing to know you, Renard, over the years and just watch you grow. Um, Congratulations in your professional growth, your growth in martial arts. Um, Way to go, man. Super cool. I know there's a lot of people looking up to you. And Amir, I've seen your face on the podcast and heard your voice before. And so it's good to see you. And it was great to get to know you too. But thank you. And maybe we'll do this again sometime. Really cool.
Definitely, definitely. We have to. We always gotta come back and have guests on. We'll have a part 2 definitely. And just
Awesome.
want to say to our black belts and boardrooms audience, we will see you on the next one.